Hi, I'm Daniel Andrews, owner and creator of AndrewsFootball.com. Welcome to my finale of the top 10 Kansas City Chiefs of all time. If you're new to my channel and you haven't done it already, there's a button right down here. See it? See it? Bam! Hit that button. Become one of the greatest people on planet Earth. My channel, scientifically proven to make all your wildest dreams come true. Now, I hope you get a chance to actually look at all the other videos, but just to recap, and I also put it in the thumbnail for you so you can already see who I have, but just to recap real fast, the 10th greatest Kansas City Chief of all time is Otis Taylor. Number 9 is Jamaal Charles. Number 8 is Derrick Thomas. Number 7 is Tony Gonzalez. Number 6 is Will Shields. Number 5, Johnny Robinson. Number 4, Bobby Bell. Number 3, Willie Lanier. Number 2 is Buck Buchanan, and it should be very obvious who is the number 1 Kansas City Chief of all time. And I want to be very clear, this is only players. I'm not listing owners or coaches or general managers. It's players only, and you only get credit for the time that you were here in Kansas City. One argument I got was, why is the greatest tight end of all time only number 7? Well, I'm not giving him credit for the 5 years he was in Atlanta. I'm only giving him credit for the time he was here in Kansas City. So Curly Gulp, he's a Hall of Famer, but he spent half his career outside of Kansas City. I only gave him credit for the time he was here in Kansas City. Unfortunately, he didn't make my list, but he did make an honorable mention. Now, I do make a slight exception for the number 1 player on the list, and if you haven't figured it out by now, it's Lenny the Cool Dawson. And by the way, if you look below in the description, you will see that I put a copy or a link to America's Game. If you're not familiar with this, I've seen every single one. The NFL Network does a thing called America's Game, where they take the Super Bowl winner and they have a few players, coaches, sometimes assistant coaches. It's different for every single team, and they talk about what happened during the season. And they kind of recount what happened. Well, for the Chiefs, Len Dawson actually recounts, kind of recounts what happened during that season. And during the 1969 season, Len Dawson had his most difficult year as a professional. First off, early in the season, he gets a knee injury, which he goes to the team doctor. Team doctor tells him he needs surgery and it will end his season. Now, keep in mind, technology in the 60s and technology now is night and day, but Len Dawson did something that 99% of players don't do. He tried to get a second opinion, and he got second opinion. Second opinion told him to do the same thing. Third opinion. Finally, he found a doctor in St. Louis, not Kansas City, St. Louis, who told him that, why don't you just hold off? And then if it doesn't work, get the surgery. But he gave him some things that he could do, exercises to prevent atrophy, but basically rest for about 4 weeks and then get back out there. And that's exactly what he did. But he wasn't really 100%, and basically it sounded, the way it sounds like in the video, he really wasn't 100% at all. But it sounds like he was at his best in the postseason. But during the 1969 season, his father died. And anybody who's ever lost a parent knows how difficult of a thing that can be. But here you are, you overcame an injury that should have ended your season. Most players that went to their team doctor did exactly what the team doctor did. It was a different time back then. You trusted your team doctor for the most part, but Len Dawson had a second opinion. But he has to overcome this, and he overcomes the death of his father. Then, right before the Super Bowl, he's involved in some gambling charges, and they talk about this in more detail in America's Game, the video I got linked below. But basically, he looked like there was a possibility of him going to federal prison for 10 to 15 years. So, overcoming a season-ending injury, death of his father, federal prison. I mean, is there anything else you have to go through? And they other players that were teammates of Len Dawson in video recount that Len Dawson was a wreck. I mean, he was chain smoking. There's always clips of Len Dawson smoking on the sidelines, which I think is pretty cool. Not smoking part, but you get it. And they're talking about him not being in good shape. So what does he do? What does he go out and do against a heavily favored Vikings team? He goes out and wins the game, becomes MVP. I can argue that no other Super Bowl quarterback will ever have to go through the things that he went through in order to not only just play, but to win the game. And the 1969 Vikings, that was one of the greatest defenses of all time. That was a great defense. And if you know your history, this was the final time, the final game for the AFL, because the next year the AFL and NFL merge and you get the AFC and the NFC. And another thing you got to think about was that Super Bowl III. The Jets from the AFL won Super Bowl III. A lot of people thought the Colts weren't prepared because they won the main game, which was the NFL championship, just a week or two before. And the Vikings, they were ready. Unlike the Colts, they knew that they were playing against a good football team. This wasn't like an exhibition game like the Colts thought it was. They were prepared for a real game. But they played the Chiefs, and I think Chiefs are just simply the better team. So here's the thing. I did say that I was making an exception for Len Dawson, and the reason why is that he also did sports on TV for the local affiliate here in Kansas City. I mean, back then there wasn't as many channels as there's now. There's basically 3 main channels. Len Dawson was on one of them doing sports every day, so you got to see him on TV. He was part of the Kansas City culture. He also did play-by-play on the radio. I loved listening to Len Dawson call games. I used to actually turn the sound off the TV, and I used to turn the radio up because I loved listening to Len Dawson do the games. He also kick-started Inside the NFL, which is still going on today. Len Dawson was the first host of Inside the NFL, so he not only did a lot for the community, but he also did a lot for outside of Kansas City to make Kansas City known. He was a big ambassador for Kansas City and for the NFL in general. But it's funny because the NFL named him one of the top 10 underrated players of all time because his game would actually fit today's game. He would be a much better quarterback in today's game than he would be back then. He was known for accuracy, throwing the ball, being a rhythm passer. You know, teams didn't throw the ball as much back then as they do now, but that was what he was very good at. He was probably the most accurate quarterback in the league, both leagues at that time. Len Dawson could throw the ball as well as anybody. If you had to comp him to somebody, he would be like a bigger version of Drew Brees. But I mean, maybe not as good as Drew Brees. That's saying a lot, but I mean, his accuracy and rhythm passing are things that was basically unparalleled. And those are what you're looking for in a quarterback today. But here's another thing. Len Dawson won the starting job in 1962, and he took the Dallas Texans to an NFL championship. But 1961 starter Cotton Davidson, they were able to trade him to the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders ended up going 1-13. And after that 1-13 season, they hired some guy named Al Davis, who did a pretty good job, by the way. And that's a different story completely. But thanks to Len Dawson outperforming Cotton Davidson in that trade, they were able to use that draft pick to draft Buck Buchanan. So without Len Dawson, you don't even get Buck Buchanan. Without Buck Buchanan, you don't end up getting that great defense. I can argue without Len Dawson, you 100% don't get Buchanan. So without Len Dawson, you don't get the 62 championship, the 66 Super Bowl, or the 69 Super Bowl win. Because thanks to Len Dawson, you're able to draft Buck Buchanan. All right? And then you're able to build that great defense. Then you're able to have that Hall of Fame quarterback. So anyway, bottom line, this is my list, but I want to know what you think. I mean, you have a top 10 list. What are your favorite players of all time? If you're new to this channel's just designed to talk football. I just want to know what you think. I just want to talk football. I love football. I want to know what you think. Who are your favorite players of all time? Who do you think is the greatest Chief of all time? Do you have a list of just several greatest Chiefs? You don't have to have an order. I don't care. I just want to talk football. Anyway, I really hope that you enjoyed this list as much as I enjoyed making it. I'm going to break down every single divisional game. So starting tomorrow, I'm going to have a new video. I'm going to break down every single divisional game starting tomorrow, where I'm going to break down the Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. So I will see you tomorrow.